Welcome to another edition of Our City. Residents can visit any of our social media accounts, get any more information on upcoming events in our city, or simply have a question, call our public information office at 908-820-4124. And we're continuing to air shows celebrating the 250th founding of our nation. And today's special guest is Mr. Devang Merchant, who is the trial court administrator at the Superior Court in New Jersey, here in Union County. Devang, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Well, first of all, tell us a little about yourself, because before the show, you have a fascinating history. So please tell us.
Sure. So I am an immigrant to this country. I moved here when I was 7 years old, so it's been quite some time. And me and my sister came with my parents. My sister's 3 years older than me, so she was 10 when we came here. And my parents met in India, got married, had kids, and then emigrated here. My father's brother was already living in this country, so he came to see if it was something he wanted to do. And so he came a year before we did, see if he could find employment, see if he liked working here, living here, and then we came a year later.
And did you come to New Jersey or the New York area first?
Philadelphia area, the Philadelphia
area.
suburban area on the Pennsylvania side. And so grew up down there and have spent the majority of my life here in the Northeast. I've spent some time in Houston and in Charlotte as well, but the bulk of it has been somewhere between Philly and New York.
Now, you told me before the show you still have a lot of family in India, right?
I do.
Cousins?
Yeah, my father's one of 13 children. My mother's one of 6. The majority of those aunts and uncles are still in India, the ones who are, of course, still alive, and a lot of cousins. So when I was a child, my parents used to send me and my sister to India for the entire summer, probably between the ages of, 10 and 17. Every summer we were there kind of June, July, August. So I built a great relationship with those cousins. It's probably in the ballpark of 30 first cousins.
Wow.
And so it was kind of great to learn the language, still be part of the culture, and kind of be able to embrace both an American and an Indian side of
so you were telling me your father's from the north in India and your mom's from the south, right?
Correct. My dad's family
So you got it covered.
Is primarily in the Mumbai area, and my mother's family is near the south, kind of India forms like a little triangle at the bottom, so she's from down there. And so, every time we would go, we'd be in both parts of the country. We'd spend time with both parts of the family, got to see a lot of different languages. My dad probably speaks 4 or 5 languages. My mother probably speaks 4 or 5 languages.
Are they different, by the way?
Yes.
From where your dad grew up and where your mom grew up?
Yeah, correct. Yeah. And so in Mumbai, my dad's family actually was from a neighboring state, so they spoke the language of that state because that's where the family grew up. But in Mumbai, everybody speaks Hindi, so they knew Hindi. They all went to school. They're all educated, so they all knew English. And then they also spoke the language of the state, right? So they kind of all knew, 4 languages just by virtue of where they lived and where they had come from. And my mother was similar, right? So
But a former British colony, English is spoken.
English is mostly the language of government, right? It's what allows people from all over the country to speak. And so both sides spoke English and they spoke Hindi. Hindi's kind of the official language, but not as many people across the country speak it. But certainly, in the workplace and in government, English is kind of the common language.
So how did you wind up leaving the Philadelphia area and getting here as a trial court administrator and serving the people of Union County?
It's kind of a fun, interesting story. I actually spent many years managing movie theaters. I actually had no relation to public service and did about 18 years managing movie theaters, and then managed some bookstores for a few years before I finally landed in public service. And I actually landed here in Union County at the Union County Courthouse. I was living in Sparta, and now I live down here in Union County, but I was living at that time and was looking to transition away from the work I was doing. And part of it was, though I enjoyed that work, part of it was a quality of life, right? I worked a lot of nights, weekends, holidays, so it made it hard to spend time with friends and family who worked standard schedules. And part of it was also kind of a pull and a calling to a greater need, right, to a greater calling than generating profit for a corporation. And so public service is something I looked at. And I actually started here in Union County at the courthouse as the jury manager. And so I did that for a couple of years.
A lot of people love the jury manager.
So I did that for a few years. Then I got promoted to the operations division manager. So I oversaw jury interpreting, records, those facilities, those types of things. And then I did that for about 4 years. And now I've been the trial court administrator. So I got promoted to the trial court administrator job. And I've been doing that for about
Tell us about that job. It's a big job.
It is. So the trial court administrator is the highest non-judicial employee at the courthouse, right? So I report to our assignment judge. Her name's Lisa Morales-Walsh. And she has oversight of all court operations at the county, but primarily she oversees the judges, the law clerks, and the judges' secretaries. And I oversee our non-judicial staff, right? We've got about 425 employees in 9 different divisions that we split up. We've got our civil, our criminal, our family courts, our municipal, and our probation divisions, and then we've got our support services, right? Our human resources, finance, IT, operations. So we take all those 9 divisions. We've got division managers, assistant division managers, supervisors, administrative staff, clerical staff, right? So those kind of triangle up to me, and then me and the assignment judge are the executive component for court operations here in Union County, and then we work together with our partners in the administrative office of the courts in Trenton.
So, Devang, it plays a major role in trust and fairness in the community, your job. So please tell our viewers about that.
In my opinion, we're an independent branch of government, right? The judiciary is that, and I think that branch of government and being independent is really one of the values of a modern civil society. The courts and the faith that members of the community place on the rule of law, I think, are essential to our city, to our state, to our nation. I think people recognize that courts exist to be able to resolve disputes and do it in a neutral, unbiased, fair manner. Union County Courthouse, we're hearing thousands of cases between the civil, the criminal, and the family courts, and really, it's about reviewing the evidence and weighing the facts and trying to do it with as little bias as possible. I think that it's a lofty ideal. I mean, obviously we live in an imperfect society, but that's kind of the goal, right? And then speaking to fairness, the court system, the judiciary as a whole, has some 4 core values, right? And fairness is actually one of those 4 core values. So I think fairness is kind of woven into the framework of how we operate as a court system on a daily basis. And I actually encourage people, as I mentioned about the jury manager, as a shameless plug, right? Respond to your jury summons, report. But I think what it does is...
Well, you're not the most well-liked guy in the
absolutely not.
Jury manager.
Clearly not. But I think what it does is it provides insight to people on how court processes work. And then if you're eventually chosen to be a juror, you're an active participant in
the process,
either the resolution of a dispute in a civil matter or the determination of guilty or not guilty in a criminal matter. I mean, those are some lofty responsibilities for our citizens, our community members, and so.
So the Union County Courthouse has been, more than a century, and it's a historical building in our city, and that significance marks an important landmark. So tell us about what it's like to work in such a... Is it haunted, by the way? People
do say it is, right? So the seal of the County of Union is the picture of a woman named Hannah who is being shot at by some British soldiers, and so the story is that Hannah is who haunts the courthouse. But historically, the rotunda, the modern rotunda that sits on Broad Street right now, right across the street from the library, opened in 1905. The tower behind it opened in, I think, 1934. That building's a little over 300 feet tall. To my knowledge, it is the tallest building in the city of Elizabeth, and I've been told it's the tallest in the county of Union. I'm not really sure about that, but I could believe it.
At one point it was.
At one point it was. I'm not sure what's gone up But I mean, I think that's certainly historical. The city of Elizabeth has had some kind of courthouse, not necessarily exactly where the courthouse is now, since the late 1600s. And then post independence from the British in 1797, there was a courthouse that burned down, and a new courthouse was built and opened in 1811. That courthouse stayed in place until the rotunda that's there now. The courthouse that burned down in 1811, or sorry, yeah, the one that burned down, that there was a statue of Lady Justice that is now in the rotunda lobby that's still there.
The statue survived.
The statue survived, and it's still in our lobby. It was in storage, and a former assignment judge found it in storage, and it now is a prominent place in the.
Where is it, in the rotunda?
Yeah, you walk in the rotunda on the first floor, and off to the right in the central area. That there's still that statue is still there. And then over the years, we've expanded as the population expands, as the needs expand. What we refer to as the new annex, opened in the late 60s, like 1965, and then our newest building is our Cherry Street annex, which houses a lot of our houses our family courts. Not all of them, but most of them are there. That's on the corner of Cherry there, and that's been open since 2017.
Right. So you just talked about it. The courthouse witnessing an awful lot of change, from technology laws to demographics. So how is it adapting? How do you, as someone who's been there a while, how does it adapt to meet the modern needs while still honoring the legacy of the past?
I mean, I think that we as a court system, we change as society changes. Look, I'll be the first to say that both in government and the judiciary, we sometimes move slower than society, and we do it with a lot of deliberative thought. But we do change. I think an easy example is the Criminal Justice Reform Act that went into effect in 2017. Right, it was passed by referendum by the voters, and it basically focused on the impact of a bail system on individuals who were charged with crimes that may be nonviolent or lower charges, and that had bail associated with them, and sometimes even small amounts of bail that individuals could not come up with. So as little as maybe $2,000, $2,500, $5,000 in bail. And what is the impact of not being able to make that bail? Right, so somebody could lose their job, lose their car, lose their housing, and then what is the impact of the family, right? Then it kind of has the potential. You're in jail for 10 days, 20 days, 30 days, 60 days, a year, pending a trial, and what is the impact? And if you have means, regardless of what the charge is, you could be out on the street. And so I think that's certainly a example, right? And that decision is, as to whether to release somebody, is made by a judge who reviews a risk assessment tool. The prosecutor's office can still file to detain an individual who's been charged with a crime, and a judge still makes that decision, right? Is this person a risk to society? Can they be monitored? And then we have a staff of people on pretrial services who monitor people, right? They're calling them, they're video conferencing them, they're asking them, I need you to show me, I need you to come into the office, right? So that's, I think, certainly one of the ways we've changed. COVID, in the most recent, forced us to change dramatically from a technology standpoint. With the consent of parties and the courts, many of our proceedings now can happen virtually. The judiciary provides oversight to all of the municipal courts. So in Union, there's 21 towns with a varying number of courts. The majority of those court sessions are now held virtually, and that's a impact to the community members, right? That not having to go to the courthouse and to be able to do all of that virtually, not have to lose half a day worth of work, or maybe on a lunch break or something, and go sit in a conference room somewhere, or go sit in your car. Obviously, don't be driving when you're in court, but sit in your car and participate in a court session. And so I think those are some of the ways we've adapted. COVID forced us to create a electronic document submission system, so that people who
tell us about that. That's a lot of people don't know about that system. It's important.
So we created a system called JEDS. It's the Judiciary Electronic Document Submission System. It allows you to go to the website, and you can actually file and initiate a case through our website without having to come into the courthouse. And it was, again, developed during COVID, when people needed to be able to file matters with the court, and you could not access the courts. You couldn't come to the courts. The courts, we were working remotely. We had some people on site. We had set up little drop boxes where you could, drop off paperwork, but people were afraid. People were afraid to go out. People were afraid to interact with people. And so we had to develop a way to be able to get stuff electronically, and that's still active.
I know. So I asked my municipal court judge about will we ever go back to in person on a lot of these cases. He said no.
Unlikely, and of course the municipal judge has the ability to bring in people in a in-person matter if you've got people who have been non-responsive, people who have matters of significance, right? If it has a potential for a jail sentence, if there's a potential for a loss of a driving privileges or a loss of a license or a suspension of a license, DWI matters, right? These are big matters at the municipal level. Of course, the municipal judge can bring those matters in. And then look, the reality is in this day and age, we know people are maybe not as responsive or behaving the way they should on a virtual matter. And if the judge is unable to get someone to kind of monitor the decorum, right, and behave as if they were in a courtroom versus sitting at home, they can, turn that session and say, you need to come in and we need to have you appear in court to do that. But I think the days of bringing 100 people in once a day, twice a day in the Elizabeth.
That's over.
Yeah, and look, ultimately, I think the members of the community who have to appear in court like that.
Oh, I agree with you, Devang. I think a lot of people are thrilled that they can deal with some minor issues by Zoom or
Correct.
Microsoft Teams and get it done. So as we wrap up here, the 250th anniversary, the courthouse, as you've talked about, by the way, represents a broad story of justice and legacy and community in our city. What do you see the future of the courthouse? I mean, is it a building that should stay there for another 100 years?
Look, I mean,
haunted and everything.
I think it's a beautiful building. I think it's kind of a beacon to the ideals that we hold sacred. It's a visual reminder of what it is that we as a society hold to be important, right? The rule of law, the ability to resolve disputes, the ability to keep a record, to be able to separate people from society that have committed crimes. I think those are all important roles that the courts serve and will continue to serve. That being said, would I love a building that does not have some of the technological challenges of a building that's over 100 years old? Absolutely, right? Wiring those buildings is challenging. Adding, data so our video conferencing equipment works is challenging. But I don't advocate for tearing it down. I mean, it's a beautiful building. Those courtrooms are not only beautiful, but they impart a sense of what is the importance of a court appearance.
Yeah,
right?
You just said a really good point. And the courtrooms in the main building compared to the courtrooms in the Family Justice Center are totally different.
They are. And I will tell you, the courtrooms in the family courthouse functionally worked better, right? Because they were designed for microphones and monitors and video conferencing, and they look nice. They've got beautiful millwork on the back wall behind the judge and nice wooden benches, but they just still don't have the grandeur of the courtrooms in the tower. The first, third, fifth, and seventh floor courtrooms are double height ceilings. They've got the columns and the beautiful plaster work around the top of the courts, and they look like you're in a courthouse, right? And sometimes that appearance matters for the adjudication of justice, right? And it helps provide a sense of what is the weight of the matter being dealt in that. And sometimes that's lost on a virtual a virtual court.
I want to really thank you for taking the time to join us on the show. Your knowledge and your history of a beautiful building in our city will share greatly as we march towards the 250th anniversary next year.
I appreciate you asking me to be here. It was an honor. Thank you.
I want to thank Mr. Devang Merchant for joining us and all of his information regarding the Union County Courthouse and sharing it with the viewers of the City of Elizabeth. We'll see you next week on another edition of Our City.